warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to this special webinar broadcast on TV9 Digital. This is USV's CSR initiative called Samajhdar Bano Sehat Ke Ishaare Samjho. With a plethora of doctors and esteemed ones at that, we try and decode and discuss a diabetes-free life, a life that is not marred by cardiac problems. So today our focus is going to be on tackling a silent epidemic, and this is again interesting for all the youngsters that are probably watching this webinar, that's hiding in plain sight. We're calling it diabesity. That's right. It's not just a fancy collection of two words. It's the deadly link between weight gain and diabetes collectively together, hence diabetes. Many of us ignore a growing waistline. It might be a vanity issue, but it's actually a serious metabolic cry for help. Doctors with us on the broadcast will dive straight into the warning signs of what it means to be dealing with this. With us on the broadcast is Dr. Ayushi Singhal, MBBS, LLRM Medical College, Meerut, MD Medicine, ABVIMS, and Dr. RML Hospital, New Delhi. She's a DNB in Medicine, DM Endocrinology, SGPGIMS Lucknow, Assistant Professor, Department of Endocrinology at the LLRM Medical College, Meerut. Wow, that's a long list of accolades to your name, Doctor. With us also on the broadcast is Dr. Kanchan S. Kewalramani, DNB Endocrinology, DNB General Medicine, D Diabetology, and FCPS Consultant Diabetologist and Endocrinologist with the Jupiter and Bethany Hospital in Thane, Mumbai. Many thanks for taking out the time, Doctor. And Dr. Harsha Pamnani, MBBS, MD Medicine. She's a gold medalist, DNB Endocrinology, a consultant endocrinologist, diabetes, thyroid, obesity, and hormone super specialist, joining us from Bhopal. So, Dr. Singhal, let's get the snowball rolling here. Is this just another fancy word? I mean, diabetes, diabesity, or do we really need to look at how people are becoming overweight and then ignoring that metabolic cry that clearly our waistline is telling us? Let's get the snowball rolling here. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is not exactly defined like being a new name for the overweight, but rather diabetes, it is a specific metabolic breakdown that happens when there is coexistence of obesity as well as type 2 diabetes. So what happens when there is excessive body fat, especially around our waist, that you already had mentioned, that like our increase in the waist circumference, so it starts breaking our internal sugar processing system, hence leading to the diabetes.
Okay. Doctor, let me come to Dr. Kanchan next. Doctor, is all weight gain equally dangerous? There are a lot of anti-weight gain warriors on social media that are going to tell you that, let's not be too finicky about checking our weight every day. Let's not put so many curbs and restrictions on what we eat. That also is unhealthy for the mind. So, is all weight gain equally dangerous? Or is there a specific red flag that people should be on the lookout for? Of course, once it goes beyond a certain point, you can clearly tell if somebody is really overweight. And, I don't want to use the word fat over here because, I mean, that construes as body shaming. Let's not do that. Let's not, go into that realm. But what are some of the red flags that people just shouldn't miss out on?
Yeah, thank you, Kabir. I think that's a wonderful question. And I think we recently had the World Obesity Day on 4th March.
That's right.
So this is the perfect timing for this program as well. So when I say red flag is central obesity. So if a patient is putting on weight, especially around the belly area, so that's definitely a red flag. So it's not just an extra cushion around your stomach, It's basically an active fat which releases a lot of inflammatory molecules which are toxic. And this acts as a driver for insulin resistance. So it's your central obesity, which is the red flag, which patients have to be really careful about, or the people around, because we often see patients who are like really with big fat bellies and people feel proud that khate peete ghar ke log hain. But let's not ignore that it's actually a metabolic signal for ill health coming your way.
Yeah, I mean, you're too kind when you said it's not just a little layer of cushion. But, let me ask you that many viewers secretly wonder if someone says, I only eat home food. But that home food is paratha, it's mithai, it's late night snacks. That does not count as healthy lifestyle now, does it? मैं बाहर का खाना नहीं खाता, मैं घर का खाना खाता हूँ. but we all know the kind of oil that's going inside, the parathas that are coming, and how can you say no to parathas? It is a staple across the length and breadth of the country. So, some tips, some techniques, Dr. Kanchan, that you'd also like to highlight here?
Yeah, definitely. I think parathas, these as Indians and as Asians, our diets are very carbohydrate rich.
Yeah.
So, and all the carbohydrate gets ultimately, the glucose get converted to fat, and that's where it gets deposited around. So we should avoid processed food totally. We should increase our protein intake and decrease the carbs, and increase the fiber intake in your diet. So when I say proteins, there are vegetable sources as well as non-vegetable sources of proteins. So we should have our diet, the plate should be, at least start with your proteins, then come to your fibers, and last should be your carbs.
Okay, so that should be the hierarchy, or the order in which you should be consuming your nutrition every day. Dr. Harsha, why is belly fat that we're all talking about here? Let's not be ashamed about it. We are such a diabetic nation. Why is belly fat considered a metabolic warning specifically? Help the layman out there understand why this is a metabolic cry coming from the body, and why do we miss out on it? Why do we understand diabetes? Why do we start taking those insulin shots after the train has already left the station?
Okay, so thank you for this question. So belly fat, basically it is the visceral fat. Belly fat that we see in our patients, in OPD patients, we are seeing that many patients coming with the obesity around the abdomen. So the belly fat is basically, it covers your visceral organs like liver, like multiple organs they covered. So this is called visceral fat, which is basically dangerous fat. It is active fat, as we have discussed. It is active fat. It releases inflammatory cytokines, which can be dangerous for the body. So this visceral fat is dangerous fat, which can leads to multiple problems like diabetes, high cholesterol level. It can increase the risk of heart disease. It can increase the risk of stroke, and everything can be increased by when the belly fat or visceral fat is increased, because it is the fat which is metabolically active, which release cytokines, and these dangerous fat can lead to so many complications. So we advise patients that the fat you see at your arms, which is basically subcutaneous fat. The belly fat which you are seeing, it is visceral fat, which covers your internal organs, and it is dangerous fat. So we have different markers for it. How will you call obesity? We have different markers for waist tip ratio we will be discussing. And basically this can be reduced. This belly fat can be reduced by proper diet and exercise, and with proper sleep training, and with actual counseling, this can be reduced. And there are also different medicines for it, but basically diet, lifestyle changes can be done to reduce this belly fat, so that different complications can be decreased.
All right, doctor, we hear you. So basically, the fat on the arms, the fat on the legs, that's not as much of a problem as the fat on the belly, because that is the fat that actually covers your visceral organs. But in India, we often joke about the uncle belly. It automatically appears after the age of 35, and we're really proud to wear that. Many out there are going to say that this is just age catching up. So what is your message to them who have normalized this uncle belly at the age of 35?
Okay, so do not see it as a cosmetic part, like you are looking like aged, so this is belly fat. Don't consider it. See it as a bigger problem. See it as a metabolic problem, like it can lead to your metabolic diseases. It's not a sign of aging that you are increasing your belly fat. It's basically metabolic problem, that visceral fat is increased, your insulin resistance is increased, insulin is not working properly, and you are getting so many complications. So do not consider it aging issue. Consider it as a metabolic problem, which can lead to so many diseases.
All right. Dr. Singhal, can someone, I'm just thinking from the top of my head, can someone have diabesity even if they don't feel sick, quote unquote, yet? In India, most of us sit the 8 to 10 hours at work, and then we reward ourselves with the biryanis that come in the night time. And these days you've got social media applications that help you order, and fast food is just a click away. Is the modern desk job also quietly becoming the strongest and the biggest driver of this diabesity? And can one be, at risk of diabesity without them feeling sick about it yet?
Yeah, absolutely. It can occur, especially in the earlier stages. Because what happens when the obesity is there, so our body fat cells and the other cells of the body, they become insulin resistance. That is, whatever the insulin being secreted by our pancreas, so it is not acting appropriately. So what happens, matlab, in the later stages, there will be increase in the functioning of the pancreas. It become overburdened. So the patient will usually feel sick when there is no, insulin production decreases and the glycemic control of the patient worsens. In the initial stages, nothing happens because the pancreas is over functioning and your glycemic control is good. So your blood glucose is normal. So there is no hazard with the blood glucose level and the patient usually feels normal. But as the stage progresses, there is diabetes and the patient feels the symptoms related to the diabetes like the tiredness, there is increase in the urine output, increase in the water intake in the patients, and even they feel more like eating more food.
So essentially, if you have a heavy lunch, if you have a carb-rich diet that Dr. Kanchan was also talking about, if you eat that during lunch and then right after lunch you feel really lazy, we all love our afternoon naps as well. That could be one of those warning signs. Are we reading that correct?
Definitely, that can be there in the initial stages when there is insulin resistance, but the more severe symptoms with the patient, which makes the patient worried and let the patient to go to the doctor, they usually occur in the later stages. So one has to be keep in mind the increase in the waist circumference or increase in tiredness or laziness.
Yeah, many of the elderly that I speak to during the course of the day, especially when I'm out for my jog in the morning, they say I walk on Sundays, I walk on Saturdays, and that essentially balances out the entire week. Now, my limited opinion and understanding, Dr. Kanchan, is that that's not possible. Can weekend exercise really cancel out 5 days of inactivity? And add that, whilst we're talking about the carb-rich diet that you yourself pointed out, what are some other subtle ishares, some subtle signs that our metabolism is really struggling, but then, we're not trained professionals, just like eating a carb-heavy lunch and then feeling sluggish could be one of those signs. What are some other, symptoms, some other signs, some other ishares that we should be out on the lookout for?
Yeah, definitely. So I tell my patients to look for this metabolic 4. Okay, the first one being if you feel that there is an increasing waistline in spite of your weighing scale not shifting much. So here we are again talking about the waist circumference and the central obesity part. That is one sign. Secondly, as we discussed, the patient feels really sluggish and tired after a heavy carbohydrate-rich meal. Most of the patients in India, they have a habit of taking their afternoon nap, where they just go off to sleep after having a rich carbohydrate-rich diet. Third, if they have intense cravings for sweets or salt. So this is again another sign. And last but not the least, we see a lot of patients who come with history of darkening around the neck, or in their armpits. They feel that it's maybe an allergic reaction because of the neck chain that they've worn, or, they feel that, this whole thing has become dark. Maybe it's a sunburn. So they visit all the dermatologists. They've tried all the creams. They keep rubbing hard, but the darkness doesn't go. So they need to understand this is a sign of insulin resistance. And it will not go with any of your ointments unless you lose weight.
So if I'm not wrong, it's called acanthosis. But have you seen
nigricans, it's called, yeah.
Have you seen cases where you have, let's say, a skinny-looking patient with acanthosis? Is that a rare occurrence? Because I've seen people with. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there is something called as lean insulin resistance also. Though insulin resistance is usually associated with obesity and obese people, but you have a component called as lean insulin resistance also, where there is increase in the central visceral fat, as Dr. Pabnani was discussing.
Yeah.
So even these patients can be insulin resistant.
Okay, Dr. Pamnani, Dr. Kanchan here was talking about intense cravings for sugar and for salt, and we all love our Indian desserts. So many festivals right around the corner every given month, and then with each festival there is this sweet dish that is associated to it. And let's be honest, most Indians have a sweet tooth. So if someone says, and I'm not talking about me, doctor, here, if someone says, I don't eat sweets except dessert after dinner, is that already a red flag?
The increase in the craving of sweets, it could be a red flag of pre-diabetes also. So if someone have like borderline sugar, or if someone has diabetes, the cravings for sweet or is already increased. So if someone's like earlier the patient was not eating so much sweets, recently his or her intake has increased or craving has increased. So the patient should go for checking his or her blood sugars also.
How regularly should youngsters out there start checking their blood sugars? And does this mean that every person with a belly bulge is at the risk of diabetes, or is that a gross generalization? That's not always the case. There can be people with big bellies who are not diabetic, right?
So, when the patient has big belly, the risk of diabetes has been increased. It could be increased to the tune of, say, 5 to 10 times. The risk of diabetes is increased in those patients who have big belly or large belly, as compared to those who have normal belly or normal waist hip ratio. In those with large bellies, the risk of diabetes could be high. Second question you were asking, as the diabetes incidence has been increased in India, and the risk of complications has also been increased, so it is advised if you are 30, so do check your blood sugars once in a year. If it is normal, then check your blood sugar once in a year. Even if you do not have any symptoms after the age of 30, you should check your blood sugars yearly. And if you have a family history, you are obese, you have acanthosis nigricans that we have discussed, and if you have big belly and family history, then you can check at an earlier age also. But if you do not have any problem and you are 30, then you should check once in a year your blood sugars.
Well, all right. So, family history being one of those important aspects. Dr. Singhal, we often blame genetics only for the bad things, and then we give credit to our genetics when something good really happens. But is diabesity inevitable if it's in the family? My mother is diabetic, but then I've trained my mind and my body to not give in to those sugar cravings, make sure that I exercise every day. Am I safe, or is that a gone cause because of the pure genetics that are at play over here?
No, thank you for the question, first of all. So we can't blame our genetics for all the things. Like some diabetes are there which are genetically linked, but not all the types of diabetes. Mostly the diabetes which are like type 2 diabetes, which are linked with the insulin resistance, they may occur in the patients who are obese, like a diabesity with our genetics. In the Indians, what happens, there is more risk of the visceral obesity that already being defined, that is involvement of the belly first in the obesity part. So we have to take care of all, we have to take care in terms of our lifestyle, like we have to do physical activity, and also to avoid the ultra processed food in the form of packaged foods and the soft drinks and the fruit juices, and to increase the intake of fiber rich diet, because this is lacking in our India diet, and this is the main cause of the visceral obesity in our patient, other than the genetic part.
All right, Dr. Kanchan, I've got some audience questions that are coming across on my screen. This one's from Aniket. Let's take this on. He asks, doctor, many of us sit for long hours at the office job, something that I had already put forth earlier. Does sitting too much really increase the risk of diabetes, even if we are not very overweight? So we've already, read reports, the sitting is the new smoking, but does sitting increase the risk of diabetes? Does it trigger the gun that's already been loaded by genetics?
Yes, definitely does. So I definitely tell my patients, those who have a sedentary job, that after every 1 hour, you should get up and take a walk for 5 minutes, because these are indirect things which increase your insulin resistance. So even though you may not be obese, but you're inviting insulin resistance by sitting for a long time at one place.
Okay.
So your metabolism slows down. So
Yep,
movement is important.
Dr. Kanchan, a quick reality check first up. If someone had to choose that they would want to fix just the one habit first, would it be, according to your recommendation, would it be cutting sugar? Would it be sleeping better? Would it be walking daily? Which one of these aspects gives the biggest benefit? Of course, all three combined together is going to be a game changer. But if you were to suggest that, start doing this from tomorrow, change, this is the new success mantra, what would it be?
It's a difficult question because all three of them, they have their own pros and cons. I mean, they all work beautifully if combined together. But if you ask me one thing, sleep and exercise is what I would definitely recommend. And if you still tell me one more thing, then maybe exercise is a must. You cannot escape that.
And if someone realizes that they have something called central obesity, is the damage reversible? We've been talking, across all the USV shows, we've been talking about the reversibility of diabetes, the reversibility of, let's say some cardiac issue. Is central obesity damage reversible, doctor?
I think the beauty of the human body is its resilience. I mean, our body is really very, very resilient. So early in the stage, if you focus on your weight loss, even 5 to 10% of your weight loss can lead to reversal of your diabesity in the early stages, specifically focusing on your belly fat. So with a good, vigorous cardio as well as strength training, a low glycemic index diet, and definitely reverse the insulin resistance, and that will help you reverse both the diabesity and the central obesity.
Okay. Dr. Harsha, I've got another, audience question. Let's take one of this. This is Kamran who's asking, a lot of people skip meals to lose weight. Can irregular eating, and this is something I think many of us in the 8 to 10 working lifestyle should also pay heed to, can irregular eating actually increase the risk of diabetes? There needs to be an order, a structure to this, isn't it?
Okay. So I think he wants to ask regarding the intermittent fasting, or he wants to ask regarding because of job part he is not taking properly. So it depends what meal you are taking. So this balanced diet is the best diet basically, and you have to take meal. Usually we used to counsel our patients that the 3 meals should be taken, and then in between breakfast and lunch you can have your smaller meals like fruits or nuts or anything you can have. So ideal is 3 meals a day, and in between the patient can have small meals at their workplace. But sometimes because of the job profile, because of the long duration of work of 10 hours or 12 hours, when someone is not eating breakfast, so at the lunch his appetite is increased, so he is going to eat a large bouts of meal at a lunchtime. So this irregular habit, at that time the carbohydrate or whatever he is getting, he is hungry and he's started eating, so that could lead to increase in the risk of some complications, or can, if the patient's genetics is there or belly fat is there, and irregular diet lifestyle can lead to increase in risk of diabetes. So you have to lead healthy diet lifestyle as much as possible as per your job and this thing, because we are seeing type 2 diabetes even at the age of 20. We are seeing patients coming type 2 diabetes even at the age of 15 years.
Wow.
So this type 2 diabetes, earlier it was at the age of 40, above 40. Now it has increased and the age group is now shifting towards 15 because of the obesity, because of this junks and irregular lifestyle. So youngsters should be cautious, and we are seeing patients coming with that without means type 1 diabetes is that diabetes which is insulin dependent. It can be seen at any age, but type 2 diabetes is means that diabetes which is usually earlier seen at the age of elderly, but now it is shifting because of that irregular habits that you are talking about, and we are seeing many patients coming at the age of 15 with obesity, high belly fat, and that type 2
That's really
diabetes.
dangerous. That's really dangerous, Dr. Harsha. And I'm needless to say, the Prime Minister made it a point. Last Independence Day, he spoke about obesity right from the Red Fort, the ramparts of the Red Fort. It is a big national problem, and I personally feel that it's unpatriotic to be unfit as well. But then you have these Indian families. This is something that I go through as well. They love feeding people. Now, don't they? If someone says, "Bhai, thoda aur khao, ghar ka bana hai, thoda sa aur beta," how does one politely protect their own health without offending the mothers, the aunts, the uncles? How does that happen? Do you have an answer for that, Dr. Harsha, so that I can take back home and I can learn about it, maybe say no the next time?
So now even the relatives and parents, they are very cautious because they are seeing the disease is being seen in their neighbors or in their relatives. They are getting to realize the onset of disease at a such younger age. So they are conscious, and now in the family you can see the less consumption of sugar and different. They are means taking those things but with a modified rate. Like earlier that sugar content was high, now people are making those things, like they are using dry fruits and all without the use of sugar, ghee and jaggery has been reduced by seeing these complications at an early age. So now people are offering watery drinks which is healthy. Now people are much offering fruits, health means fruits and vegetables, and like healthy meals they are offering. And much like the means the love and everything is same, but now the options of diet has been changed by seeing the onset of diseases at so much younger age. And we have different we have different options also. Now people are making healthy food, even they are giving their children dosa and that part also, but they are making the use of homemade things, that you like more vegetables should be added, and like other parts like less oil, more vegetables, and they are preparing those things at home.
Well, Doctor,
And
I sincerely hope my family members are watching this webinar, because they need a learning lesson. It's not happening in my household, that's for sure. Dr. Singhal, we've got another question, an audience question. This comes from Sneha. Let's you have it. For someone who already has a growing belly but does not have diabetes yet, what are the first 3 lifestyle changes they should start today to make sure that they don't end up with diabetes? So they have a growing belly, they don't have diabetes, but I think what Sneha really wants to know, and I don't know whether they're trying to hide behind this question or not, but you have a growing belly but no diabetes. What are the first 3 lifestyle changes that you can start from today?
Well, thank you, Sneha, for the question. So, first of all, as mentioned by Dr. Kanchan as well, if she wants to avoid having diabetes, so she has to do 3 major lifestyle changes. First, daily exercise, and that should include all the types of exercise, including the resistance part, aerobic part, and the high intensity interval training part. Secondly, she can a change in the diet pattern, that is to avoid the carb and the fat rich diet, mainly the carbohydrate rich diet, and to increase the protein part in the diet. And next is to have the good sleep. Just these are the 3 things that if someone changes in his or her life, then it will definitely take some good turn.
Well, Sneha, I hope you understood that. It's about keeping it simple. It's about not making it too complex. But Dr. Singhal, now that you're at it, how does stress contribute to this belly diabetes cycle? Because, stress is the birthplace of pretty much all complex diseases, issues in our body. We love to use it, and we can't do without stress also. That's the age and day that we're living in 2026. So how does stress contribute to this belly diabetes cycle?
Thank you, Kabir. This is a wonderful question, actually. Especially in the today's lifestyle, what we are having, all of us are having stress. And what happens during the stress, there is a release of a hormone called cortisol. So what this cortisol does, it increases our blood glucose level, because it do some changes in our body by which there is more production of the glucose. And secondly, it causes lipogenesis, that it increases the abdominal fat, which is the major cause for the diabesity that we all were talking till now. So it on its own, it increases the obesity as well, and it itself is causing the diabetes itself. So it creates a vicious cycle. More increase in the abdominal fat, other than the normal lifestyle changes. More increase will be there when there is increase in the cortisol hormone. It will cause the insulin resistance, then there will be a diabetes, and then the patient again having more stress. So it creates a vicious cycle. So it is being called as a double whammy for diabetes. So we have to counteract with the same. Other than the normal exercise part, we have to do the meditation and all to counteract this stress part.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate, Dr. Kanchan. I come from a household where diabetes has been normalized, but not everybody can access glucometers all the time. Talk to the viewers, tell them about some simple checks, some simple tips that they can use, do at home at their leisure, and that's going to help them understand and raise those alarm bells that are very much needed. And, I have a personal question, but that can wait. Let's talk about what simple checks viewers can do at home. Not everybody can use a glucometer, and I know it is an expensive affair.
Thank you, Kabir. That was really a very interesting question, and I think something which is everybody should be aware of. in the past we were all talking about BMI, that is body mass index, as a calculator for obesity, but now we've all moved to waist circumference. So I think a simple measuring tape is something everybody has at home. So all they need to do is measure their waist. So in men, if you have a waist circumference which is more than 90 centimeters or 35 inches, or in women, if the waist circumference is more than 80 centimeters, then it's or 31 inches, then it's like a metabolic warning. So you don't really have to wait for your blood reports to tell you that there's a problem. Your waist circumference, your measuring tape is a tool which is good enough, just telling you that you're in trouble, and start working on it.
Yeah,
A simple measuring tape can do wonders.
Yeah.
And you don't need expensive tests or instruments at home. This is cheap, easily available, and you can keep a watch on it.
Okay, so a measuring tape. I'm going to make use of it tonight. In Indian homes, Dr. Kanchan, dinner often happens late, especially for, media men like me who get back home real late. Dinner usually happens after 10:30 p.m. and, it's not always a choice. Sometimes that's force. I mean, you can either go to bed hungry, that's also bad, but you have to eat your dinner, late at night. So eating at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., does that also risk increasing the size of the belly? What if somebody eats dinner and then goes for a long walk, let's say at, midnight? Does that help? Is that a nice habit?
I wouldn't say that. I think early dinner is a must. I think we believe in the Ayurveda physiology, or even in the Jainism, where they, have a habit of eating your dinner before sunset. I think that's the best thing to do. But having said that, maybe 6:37, if not feasible, I tell my patients by 8, you should have the last meal of the day and not really prolong it further. And in rare cases where patients cannot really make it home or they're having late dinners, I tell them to avoid carbs completely. If they're having vegetables and dal, they can have that. They can have some soup, but avoid carbs completely in the night if you really cannot avoid late dinners. But in an ideal scenario, early before sunset or by 8 p.m. maximum should be the dinner. And I definitely advise all my patients with diabetes to go for a walk, maybe half an hour after dinner, which will help them bring down their morning fasting glucose sugars. Because when you exercise, it increases the uptake of glucose by your muscles. And that's what brings your sugars down. But eating at 12 and then going for a walk definitely doesn't help. It will,
okay.
Cannot counteract the effect of having a dinner.
Little red flags that you've raised for me personally as well. And, colleagues of mine, if they're probably watching this webinar, well, this is something that they can take back home as well. Just a couple of more questions before we wrap this up. It's been a riveting conversation. Dr. Harsha, if somebody gets to know, okay, they have diabetes, they have this diabesity, they understand the problem. So and they also want to fix it. But then what is that problem? Dr. Kanchan earlier spoke about the resilience of the human body and that's its own beauty. What is a problem that occurs mostly, and you see it more commonly, when somebody is trying to fix this? Dr. Harsha, you'll have to unmute yourself, doctor. I think we can't hear you in the studio.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're back with us.
Basically, the problem is that patient used to see the scale, the figure. Like my weight is this, my blood sugar is this. So basically, you have to understand that everything that whatever you are following, you have to be punctual with that. Like आज कर लिया, फिर 10 दिन नहीं किया, ऐसा नहीं. Like you have to take the balanced meal. You have to do strengthening exercise. The people are doing aerobics, they are doing cardio, they are doing. But what is being necessary that they forget that the muscle is the glucose is metabolism by our body, like glucose is metabolized by liver, my muscle. So muscle is the biggest consumer of glucose. So they have to move muscle, they have to exercise so that they move muscle. So they have to be cautious about that, and they have to take regular balanced meal with regular exercise. Aerobic should be there, strengthening training should be there. So we have discussed that the patient should walk or patient should do strengthening exercise. So everything is important, and punctuality is also important. So patient has to follow it for a longer part. So not that they have done for 5 days and they skip for 5 days. So they have to be
consistency and punctuality both are key over here, isn't it? All right, a final set of rounds. I'll go across the board one last time. I've got another audience question. This comes from Vijay, Dr. Singhal. Let's bust these myths as well. I would like to know, what the real answers are. Brown bread, is it really healthier than white bread, or is it just clever marketing, Dr. Singhal? What do you say?
I don't think it is better. It is, somehow it is better, but
Oh,
we can't
you're
say
saying
that
carbohydrate is
stop.
carbohydrate, white, brown,
Yeah.
yellow, purple doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's another question. Let me add to this question. Are diet sodas, the diet soft drinks, or sugar substitutes, do they always work? And if they work, are they safe to consume?
They are actually the carbonated drinks. They don't contain the sugar, but carb is there inside them. It's like the sugar-free meals, sugar-free sweets, like we used to consume the sugar-free sweets. It does not have the added sugars, but otherwise the carb part is there inside it.
Okay, okay. Dr. Kanchan, at the risk of being maimed and blamed on social media, I'll ask you this question myself. Is rice really the villain in all of this? We love our rice now, don't we? Is rice really the villain in the Indian diets, or is the problem the portion size, the time, and how you eat it? What do you say about that?
The rice is definitely not the villain, because as we said, our base is carbohydrate meal. And we have such religious diversity in our food. So
Yeah.
if you ask, South Indian people or food, rice lovers to stop eating rice, it's for a few days they may do, but not as a lifelong process. So it's definitely not that it's a villain, but the portion size, as you rightly said, is very important. You cannot have a thali bhar ke rice.
Yeah.
Small wati is good enough, and you have it with dal or rajma or any other source of protein. It complements so that you have a perfect meal. So rice is definitely not a villain.
Yeah, I've
It's
been
the
packed some
portion
rajma
size
chawal to
and
eat
the
at lunch today
combination.
myself.
Sorry?
I've been packed some rajma chawal myself to eat at lunch today.
Yeah. So that's a complete meal because you're having your carbs as well as proteins, because there are certain essential amino acids which are missing in each of them, and when you combine it, you have a perfect protein meal.
But then not thali bhar ke, not thali bhar ke. Doctor, you meet patients from all walks of life. What is the biggest myth about weight loss that you've heard or probably cracked up about as well?
Everybody is looking for quick fixes here, and I don't believe in diets, because I think it has to be a lifestyle for you, because it's like a yo-yo phenomenon when you go for weight loss. Weight loss diets, you lose 5 kgs, and the minute you stop doing that, there is a rebound. So I always tell my patients, don't go with that weight loss diet per se. Make it your lifestyle, where you can inculcate a good sleeping habit, manage your stress levels, have a proper balanced meal, improve your portion sizes, and take it from there and make it your lifestyle. You can have some cheat days, but every day cannot be a cheat day. I think with those weight loss diets, you're so obsessed with the keto diet, your Mediterranean diet, and the various diets which are in the market, that you lose control, you lose focus.
Okay, so don't lose
And
focus.
it's all very
Consistency is the
tempting.
name of the game, and punctuality as well. Sleep, eating right, exercising every day, and maybe you can keep diabesity away. That rhymed as well. Final question, Dr. Harsha. What is your final message for our audience, for all the people who pushed in those questions? Many thanks for sending out those questions as well. My apologies. Many of them were already taken up by these doctors. Did not want to repeat or waste these super specialist endocrinologists' time. But, final message for the audience members today, Dr. Harsha.
So, like for diabesity, I just want to tell patients that we are seeing metabolic diseases at a much younger age because of the increase in the junk food, because of the increase in the sedentary habits, and because of the large duty hours, because of the family history. So, I just want to urge people that take care of your health from the very beginning. Take care of your health from the age of 20-25, and do proper, like, have this is healthy diet. So take your healthy diet, take exercise, take your sleep pattern correction, mobile screen should be reduced, timings of that should be reduced, and have a cheat day. Like if you are following these things, you have a cheat day once in a week. Do not make it daily cheat day. Like many people are taking like junk food, they are taking daily. So do not take it as a habit. Start taking care of your this from a very beginning so that you don't land up in so much of complications. Diet, lifestyle, sleep pattern correction, everything should be done for losing the weight. We have like many medicines in the market for weight loss also. For this, you have to be first follow diet, exercise, and then
Yeah.
weight loss. And if you are following this from the very beginning, then the risk of complications can be reduced. Even if you have family history at your home, even then you can reduce this by taking care of your diet and lifestyle from the very beginning.
It's all in your hand. It depends what you want to do with it. I've completely run out of time here, but many thanks, doctors, for taking out the time, helping us out with your insightful inputs. Dr. Singhal, Dr. Kanchan, Dr. Harsha, I know you're all super busy women, but you chose to take out time and spoke to us here on this special broadcast of Samajhdar Bano, Sehat ke Ishaare Samjho, a USV CSR initiative. Many thanks for taking out the time, doctors.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, then, that was our episode. You see, weight gain is not just about appearance, it's a signal from your metabolism from really within. So, if you act early, if you can take charge of your health, well, you can live a diabesity free life. That's all on this episode of Samajhdar Bano Sehat Ke Ishaare Samjho. We're going to catch you next time. Many thanks for watching.